Hey guys! Tonight we step into the cursed streets of Yharnam, where surviving just 24 hours is a nightmare of its own. So settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind wander. And before we begin, drop a comment telling me what time you're heading to bed tonight. The first thing you notice here isn't the people, it's the sound. Boots on wet cobblestone, the slow metallic scrape of something being dragged, and far off, screams that don't stop. You've just woken up in Yharnam, a city where the doctors carry saws instead of stethoscopes and the medicine eats at your mind. Tonight, you'll try to survive until sunrise, but the hunt has already begun, and the hunters aren't only after beasts. You step onto the cobblestones and feel it right away. Heat that shouldn't be there, not the soft trace of a warm night. This heat seeps upward, slow, from inside the stone. The air is thick and dull. Low clouds bunch across the sky, pressing the light flat. Central Yharnam at first light isn't waking like other cities do. No rolling carts, no shopkeepers by their doors, just streets holding on to whatever swallowed them in the dark. There's a shimmer on the stones ahead. At first glance it could be water, but the smell fixes that mistake. Not rain, not damp stone. It's sharp, metallic, curling across the back of your throat. Blood. Thick enough to smear across the seams between cobbles. Dried patches pull faintly at your shoes. Darker pools push you sideways without meaning to. They're everywhere, pressed into every corner. Somewhere ahead, metal scrapes across stone, steady, deliberate. The sound bounces between walls. Farther away, low moans blur together, as if leaking from inside the buildings, not out here. You keep your pace careful. Then you hear a third sound. Footsteps, wet ones, sliding and squelching behind you. They never match your rhythm, and whenever you glance back, there's nothing to see. Faded banners sag from poles bent in their sockets. The once white cloth is yellowed, smudged dark, stitched with the emblem of the healing church. Its scrollwork promises salvation to those who accept treatment. But here, the real proof runs underfoot in red. The blood isn't just the waste of the hunt, it's a record the city can't wash out. The church's old blood runs through these streets. It binds the cure, the sickness, and the people together. This isn't dirt to be cleaned, it's memory that stains the stone itself. You've heard the stories in passing, that the old blood never dies. It keeps what it touches. Fear, rage, hunger, all locked inside. The same crimson offered as salvation is already sick with the lives it claimed. You can taste that truth here in the heavy air. It explains why the shadows seem to lean back from dark puddles, why even the stillest pools look like they're thinking. By the gutter, a jerky twitch of fur. 4 rats, thin, bony, hunched over a lump of something dark. They chew in silence, teeth dragging over clot. It's halfway solid, steaming faintly in the morning chill. The smell is thick, like meat too far gone to name. One rat lifts its head, whiskers painted red, and meets your gaze. There's nothing human in it, but it doesn't look away. You glance at the windows above, half expecting faces. The panes are dull, curtains drawn, and yet the feeling is there. Eyes on you, more than one pair. The certainty creeps without proof. Every doorway could be a vantage. Every pocket of shadow could be hiding whoever is tracking your steps. Still moving, you notice the warmth under foot shift. It isn't one constant pulse. It comes in waves, pushing faintly back at your weight. It feels less like a street you walk, and more like scales on a thing lying beneath Yharnam's skin. This is how the city breathes. The cobblestones show their history up close. Fine cracks, smooth wear, some patches replaced recently, but always the same deep stains underneath, now part of the stone itself. Fires have swept through. Hunts, purges, attempts to scrape Yharnam clean. None of it touched what runs below. Thinking about what happened here before you woke, torches lowering, tools meant for cutting flesh. It's almost a relief you only see the aftermath. An open doorway leads into a narrow alley. Inside, the stones glisten darker, fresh wetness. Something shifts at the edge of your vision, gone before you name it. You touch the wall. The stone is pitted like bite marks. The edges rust dark. You let go. No testing needed. Ahead, voices. Not one, but several. Men speaking in short bursts, then breaking off, distracted. The words blur, but their tone is clear. No laughter, no idle chatter. They sound like they're counting things. Maybe threats, maybe each other. You imagine them at barricades or carts, sealing straps, checking weapons. The ground warms again as you get closer. The air thickens with an iron stink. Even where no blood is visible, you hear faint wet sounds under your steps. These streets could replay their history in heat, smell, texture alone. Every drop that touched them sank into the stories Yharnam can't stop telling. You slow, not just from caution, but because each footstep is answered by a faint give from below. That eyes-on-you feeling matches the rhythm in the stones now. Somewhere ahead are those men. Whatever they are, they might at least speak before anything worse. Turning a final corner, the walls fall back into a broader space. Pale light seeps in. Figures cluster in knots, shifting weight like they've been standing too long. Hands adjust weapon hilts. Eyes flick from road to rooftop. That sound you followed isn't only their talk, it's boots meeting cobblestones in time with the hidden pulse beneath you. Without thinking, you match your breath to it. The heat at your feet pushes harder. The wrongness in the smell feels like it's rising. You start to see it. The city doesn't keep this blood by accident. It feeds on it. You've been walking on its life, feeling its heartbeat without knowing. And somewhere beyond here, behind shuttered doors and silent windows, that same pulse is carried in the air. You'll hear it again soon, in a different way. The doors are shut, but the city still speaks. The seams of the buildings let slip thin threads of sound. Air moving through cracks, faint creaks behind walls you can't see into. The lane ahead is barely wide enough for a cart, and the houses push in close on either side, pressing your steps into the centre. Every window is closed. Some shutters are boarded, light splintering into thin black lines where it tries to escape. If there are people inside, they keep themselves unseen. You slow, scanning for movement. The ground here is dry, but the smell lingers. Iron, aged wood, and the faint burnt oil scent of lamps left untended. You stop at a warped door, its wood pale and split from years of damp. You knock once. The sound carries farther than expected, echoing down the whole lane. No answer. Another knock, louder this time. Still nothing. Until you hear a slow board creak somewhere inside, but no footsteps come near. At the next door you try again. The knocks closer together. For a moment there's silence, then a shift. A curtain moving just enough to break its line. An eye peers through. The white is stained a sickly yellow, the lids trembling like they've held themselves open for too many nights. You lean closer, keeping your voice low. Before you can finish a word, a whisper cuts through the wood. Don't talk loud, they'll hear you. You start to ask who they mean, but the answer comes almost beneath hearing. Not the beasts. The hunters. The words hitch with the weight of saying too much. The gaze flicks sideways towards something deeper in the house, and you catch a faint metallic click, small but certain. Thought shifts from weapon to warning, and you stand still. Across the lane, another movement draws your eye. Between narrow boards, another set of eyes watches you. Wide, wet, and darting, tracking the spaces around you even while holding your gaze. The trembling hand that parts the wood belongs to a mouth still in motion, murmuring towards someone else inside. You make out just one word, hunt, before the slit closes and the boards settle back with a muffled snap. From inside, voices drop lower, bolts slide into place, fabric draws over windows, sealing daylight out. The buildings seem to fold tighter, not out of suspicion toward you, but in the practiced habit of removal from danger. You call softly to the first window, asking what they mean about the hunters. There's a long pause before the reply, and when it comes, it's barely more than breath. They don't take them to heal. Locals whisper that taking often means they don't come back. The voice thins into silence. In that space, you remember what you've heard elsewhere. How the healing church isn't only a clergy, but a power in Yharnam, controlling blood administration and speaking as much to fear as to faith. Out here, that power sounds less like salvation and more like disappearance. If that felt heavy on your chest, take a slow breath in and let it go. You're still here. Somewhere behind another wall, someone begins to pray. The words are unfamiliar, looping to the start each time a sob catches the rhythm. Another voice joins in from a different house, not matching the prayer but adding its own layer, a wall of sound against the outside. None of them ask for help. None ask who you are. This lane has decided you carry nothing they need. Daylight usually tempts people out, lets them gauge what's safe to face. Not here. The pale morning hasn't lifted a single bolt. Locking doors under a grey sky isn't fearfulness, it's pattern. Danger moves without regard for the hour, and the sun is something to shut out like everything else. You pass a door without touching it, but a hurried whisper rides the air gap. Don't stay in the open. They're sweeping the cathedral steps today. There's no wait for reply, just the drag of something heavy being pushed against the door. You don't need to see it to know a barricade has been shoved into place. As you move on, the voices fade. What's left is life reduced to the smallest sounds, a chair leg shifting against stone, a child's cough smothered halfway by a parent's hand, the rattle of a kettle lid left on too loose. They're not signs of comfort. They're the careful noises of people whose safety depends on remaining background. The fear here isn't only of beasts. It's the kind that grows when protectors act as takers, when a banner over the threshold warns instead of welcomes. In Yharnam, to be healed might be to be gone. Too sick, the church says you're a threat. Too healthy, you've seen what should remain hidden. Either risk is enough. The thought slows your step. Without realizing it, you've matched the lane's hush. Your breathing shortens. Your eyes move like someone who's watching for a way in or a way out. You share a habit with the unseen faces, that instinct to keep yourself small, unmarked. The lane turns ahead, pulling the houses with it. The view narrows to a slice of pale wall, the angle promising either an opening or a stop. The air thins here. Damp stone rises over the scents you've carried, and under it, faint incense, sharp and almost sweet. It's not from these homes. It smells like space meant to hold more people at once and keep them apart from whatever runs beneath. As you approach the bend, the incense is stronger. Shadows stretch high along the wall, thrown by something taller than these roofs. Beneath it, the moan of iron against stone drags out, gates resisting the hands that work them. The voices are low, carrying the practiced weight of an order being carried out. You take each warning you've received and let it find its place. Hunters on the cathedral steps. People taken away without return. Doors sealed against daylight. Each detail adds to the shape ahead, where the lane spills into an opening. The gate's groan slows into a hollow rhythm, setting the tone for what waits past the turn. The road bends upward, and the shadow of the cathedral ward gathers over you. This is the healing church's administrative heart, physically cut off from the rest of Yharnam by walls and gates, and arranged so the city below feels very far away. The quiet here isn't chance, it's kept. You follow the curve until the ground begins to climb in broad stone steps. Their centres are worn smooth by decades of feet, maybe longer, but now they're empty. You're the only one climbing. Your steps hit too sharply, bouncing back from the walls like you're inside a vast bare room. You try moving lighter, but the stone won't soften your tread. Heel, toe, heel, toe. The sound rolls out into stillness, unbroken. A glance behind shows only the lane you left and the distant gate. No shapes moving, no one following. The air feels thinner here, not fresher, just stripped of the grit and smell below. Even that metallic tang that clung to you earlier is reduced to almost nothing. The walls rise higher with each tier. Massive stone blocks, their faces lined faintly with chisel marks, are interrupted in places by darker stains, burn marks, or something worse that seeped into the edges. You catch the first points of spires ahead, sharp enough from here to pass for needles. They pierce the clouded sky without ornament or welcome. The steps that might have held a trace of morning warmth are kept cold in their shadow, and that cold settles into your legs as you climb. It feels less like entering a new district than crossing a checkpoint meant for one-way travel. The buildings here are locked in tight around each other, their walls merging until no alley breaks the pattern. No washing hung to dry, no shutters cracked for air. Dark windows are set high, impossible to see into. Whether real or not, it's easy to believe this is exactly how the church wants it. Few voices, fewer glances, and no unsupervised view of life behind its walls. The higher you go, the more the chaos of central Yharnam feels like a separate world. Down there, even ruin had a rhythm. Hoofbeats, shouts, the scrape of something being dragged. Here, those sounds vanish before they reach you. It's dangerous still, but almost abstract, as if told to you rather than lived. A small motion ahead breaks that feeling. A slow bending, the edge of fabric shifting. Then the outline forms, a figure in long dark robes, hood low, back bowed deep as if fixed that way. A broom is in their hands, but its bristles are blackened, matted. They sweep steadily, pushing arcs of dark liquid toward a grated drain. It flows heavy, catching on the stone before sliding out of sight. Their rhythm never falters, never turns toward you. The drain's location is deliberate. You remember the channels running beneath the streets below, and it's not hard to picture this ward funneling whatever it collects, blood and whatever ritual work it feeds, directly into the church's hidden systems. You keep to the far edge as you pass, careful not to step in the runoff. The figure does not look up. The absence of recognition is worse than hostility. The steps end at a wide landing. The surrounding buildings lean inward, focusing your attention here. Their doors are huge, all reinforced with heavy black iron. The locks look like they could resist more than a man's force. No banners, no emblems, none of the visible symbols the church displays elsewhere. This part demands you be here for a reason. Your footsteps echo, the sound returning a beat late and making you aware of every move. Light shifts across the stone, but no warmth reaches you. The shadow is a weight, not just an absence of sun. The stillness isn't a gap between events. It's an active part of the place, a method of holding everything in its boundaries. You take in the precision. This is not a space abandoned to time, but one kept exact. Stripped of warmth, it could be welcoming in its order, but it isn't. Here, silence is control. You can almost see the landing in use. Figures in long robes moving in perfect sequence, their steps muted by weight of cloth. No conversation unless sanctioned, no casual glances. A faint ring of metal reaches you. A chime, regular, even enough to be mistaken for an echo. It comes from further up, at the start of a narrower rise beyond this space. The stairs there are sharper edged, less worn by feet. Function over display. Patches of brighter stone cut across in narrow shapes where the light gets through. You move toward the sound. Even without seeing its source, it draws you, like it sets a measure only this place obeys, and the impression stays with you. This is not a retreat for privacy, but a fortress built to keep its workings unseen. The control here lies as much in holding still and making others wait as in acting. The chime rings again, steady. You climb into the narrower path, leaving the open landing behind. The air tastes faintly of oil and steel now, signs you're moving nearer to the church's workshop. and deeper into its reach. Somewhere ahead, other sounds begin to carry through the stone. Not chimes this time, but the measured thump of boots, in a rhythm too deliberate to be anyone wandering. They appear without announcement, dark shapes pressing forward beneath shivering torchlight. Their coats are long, layered and heavy. Their masks cover every inch of the face. At a glance they resemble the healing church hunters you've seen in old illustrations, but the masks are worn to a shine around the eyes, and the cuffs are stained stiff with something dried deep into the fabric. You've read enough to know these aren't the cloistered scholars or ceremonial clergy. In Yharnam, specialised hunters were tasked to remove sickness before it spread. Among them, the Black Church hunters, and the workshop-trained few whose orders came straight from the cathedral ward. It wasn't about rescue, it was about control. They advance in a tight formation that ignores your presence entirely. Their attention feels calibrated, assessing not who you are, but whether you fit the category of what they remove. One breaks from the line without hesitation, moving toward a figure slumped against a wall down a narrow side street. The man there coughs violently, ribs jerking forward with each spasm. His hands clutch at his sides, clothes thin and worn through in patches. There's no time for him to straighten before the hunter reaches him. No questions, no offered help. The serrated saw comes off the hunter's back in a single movement, catching torchlight along its edge. It arcs once. The wet thud that follows is too fast for a fight, too clean for hesitation. The man crumples in place, folding over himself as the saw retracts. A dark scatter hits the cobblestones, sliding into the cracks, pooling slower than you expect. Your toes feel the faint warm damp before you've even tried to step back. One hunter kneels, cloth in hand, wiping the blade in short, practice strokes. Another lowers their torch until it licks the edge of the dead man's tunic. Heat hits your face first, the smell a second later. Iron, sharp and metallic. Then hair, a heavier, fouler scent over the first. The smoke clings even when you breathe through your mouth. Your tongue tastes it. What unsettles most isn't the violence, it's the absence of doubt. The hunters work as if this were inevitable. In the public stories, hunts are for beasts. In this alley, there's only a sick man, and the sickness itself is their quarry. To many here it reads less like mercy and more like a preventive purge. One turns his head and finds you. The connection is instant, fixed eye contact, the kind where you know you've been marked. His grip on the saw doesn't tighten, but it hangs in a place where swinging it would take no effort. Breathe slowly. The others keep to their work. His gaze doesn't shift. If decisions here are made quickly, you might already be placed on someone's mental list. A hiss rises from the fire as blood meets heat. Your body reacts before you think, weight shifting toward the open street. The sound of your own breath is too loud as you try to blend it into the soft noise beyond. You take one step, steady, another. The eyes follow you. You force yourself to turn away first, to let the corner ahead take shape as your next point of focus. The shadow there reaches for you and, when you cross into it, breaks you from their line of sight. In the half-dark, your pace picks up. The cooler air here smells of stone and old water, not smoke. Behind you, nothing. No boots closing in. Just the muffled pop of torches doused, somewhere out of sight. Maybe you've been dismissed as irrelevant. Or maybe someone else is watching from a different angle. You keep moving. The alley feeds you onto a narrower lane. The walls here are low and uneven, scarred dark at their base. Bits of ash flake loose from cracks when you brush too close. The scent of burned wood, faint at first, begins to thicken. It rides the breeze from somewhere deeper in the city. A weak orange light flickers ahead in uneven bursts. It dances across the wall from a source you can't yet see, like the reflection of a fire tucked away behind a turn. The lay of the streets guides you toward it. You can't quite leave behind the picture those hunters made. Their absolute precision, their refusal to pause. If the church says the sickness needs burning out, they burn it out. If the order changes direction, so do they, without question. That's the discipline either keeping you alive or lining you up for the flames. The air grows warmer as you descend. The street narrows again, but also deepens, like it's leading to a basin. The light ahead spreads wider now, painting the edges of the buildings in a dull, steady glow. The smell that comes with it is no campfire, no hearth. There's weight under the char, an oily density that sticks in your nose. You slow your steps to listen, but the space ahead holds no voices, just the faint hiss of heat on damp stone and the shifting crackle of something heavier than wood breaking down in the fire. Ash drifts past in slow spirals, catching briefly on your coat before lifting off again. Whatever waits ahead, the street gives you no other option but forward. And that glow, deep, patient, unblinking, is close enough now that it washes the colour from the shadows around it. Old Yharnam comes into view like a wound that never closed. The street narrows, the buildings lean in, and the light ahead isn't the quick dance of a living fire. It's steady, like something that's been burning for so long it forgot it was meant to end. The air shifts as you approach, warmer, heavier, and it doesn't carry comfort. It presses against your skin, holding a thickness that makes each breath feel like pulling through cloth. The first flakes reach you before the heat does. Ash drifts down in loose spirals, vanishing into the seams between cobblestones, sticking to your coat before being replaced by more. There's no brushing it away for long. The smell follows close, burnt, bitter, clinging to the back of your throat. It's not the clean scent of wood or coal. It's something final, the residue of burning things that used to be alive. You step deeper into streets that feel long uninhabited, not paused, but emptied in a way that says no one's coming back. A few doorways stand open, but no sound, no movement. Window frames are blackened, shutters sunken in. Far ahead, a line of fire spills across the street, blocking the view beyond. Shapes move in that glow, slow and deliberate, but never close enough to see clearly. The stories about this district were always brief, as if saying too much made people uneasy. From what you've pieced together, old Yharnam didn't simply fall to the plague. It was chosen. When the beast outbreak spread faster than the church's blood cures could contain, they shifted from treating it to eradicating it wholesale. Old Yharnam had to be cordoned and burned. Entire blocks, homes, shops, clinics were set alight in one calculated act. The glow you're walking toward is what remains. No wild blaze now, but a long low burn sustained over years. Someone tends it, making certain no one, beast or human, has reason to rise again here. And still your path keeps you moving forward. Ash thickens underfoot before you see why. A plume of darker smoke rises ahead, slower and heavier than the rest. You follow it to a stone pit sunk into the middle of the street. At first it could be mistaken for an old well, but the shapes inside settle that quickly. Charred remnants, limbs collapse tight against burned torsos, others reduced to little more than blackened outlines. The air above it is rich and foul, that scorched fat smell your body rejects on instinct. Farther in, more pits wait in staggered lines, each with its own column of smoke. You move past them, steps crunching softly in the ash. Buildings on either side slump inward. Frames stripped to skeletal walls. A roof gives way in the distance with a muted crack and puff of embers. The ash is constant, in the street, in the air, falling onto you from weakened walls when you pass too close. From above, a voice cuts through. Turn back. No place for you here. Your head tilts up to find a figure leaning over the broken rail of a high balcony. The coat marks them as a hunter, the shoulders burned through in places. A weapon rests against the rail, metal dulled by use but not neglect. Their faces lost in shadow from some unseen firelight behind them. The tone isn't warning for your safety. It's exclusion. They don't want you here. You stand long enough to feel the gaze fixed and measuring, until the figure steps back and disappears into the ruin. The air seems louder for their absence, the fires murmuring in the quiet. You could turn back, you don't. The first sign you pass still carries the word clinic in bubbled white paint. The board is half detached, swinging slightly in the heat's updraft. Inside, the floor is nothing but char and nail heads. In Yharnam, every clinic had some link to the healing church's bloodwork, either public halls or hidden private rooms. If the fire touched this building, it touched that work along with it. It was a cure the church didn't want continued. Deeper in, more signs. Some too burned to read, others naming small trades, baker, tailor, but their ruined interiors still hold fragments of glass vials and warped instruments, bleached white by heat. These flames didn't just take the people, they erased the means to do what they did here. No chance of recovery, no chance of resuming. By the third pit, you stop trying to keep the air from your lungs. The smell is inside your scarf, your hair, settled in the fabric. The same orange light hangs everywhere, caught in what glass remains, glowing off half-fallen windows, tinting every surface. It's a single palette for this whole district. Fire's residue, without colour for anything else. At an intersection, an arch adrift in rubble frames another street of ruin. Beyond it, more pits and smoke columns twist into the same low clouds. Somewhere past, it all comes a faint, uneven sound. Stone under boots, maybe, but no approach. Just presence. What lingers most isn't the fire itself, but the decision behind it. No one mistook this for a rescue. Burning old Yharnam was quicker than sifting the sick from the well, and in records it became one clean word, cleansed. As policy, it left no argument. The plague was contained, the ledger was neat. You pause, letting the thoughts settle, then in a softer voice, just for the ones who might be holding tension in their chest. Remember, right now you're only picturing this. You're safe in the place where you're listening. Your eyes sting, the heat catching in your lashes, blurring the streets further in. You turn down a side lane that looks narrower, less choked with ash. The road rises gently, hinting at higher ground ahead. Somewhere past this maze lies the Grand Bridge, one of the main arteries of the city. You can't see it yet, but the shape of the street suggests it's close. The warmth fades against your shoulders as you put distance between yourself and the burning district. Still, the smell follows, faint but insistent. Stone returns underfoot where ash once muffled your steps. Each strike echoes again, truer in the space ahead. That space grows quieter, as if holding its breath. Another scent begins to thread into the air, not sharp smoke, but something heavier, warmer, and unmistakably alive. You notice it before you know what carries it. It starts with the low scrape of something against stone, a rhythm that doesn't belong to human steps. You're halfway across the great bridge when it finds you, that steady pull and plant, like claws hooking deep and hauling weight forward. The air carries fur and heat, but also the sunk, heavy stench of rot. It comes through in layers, working down your throat before you've decided what it is. Even the cold wind over the river can't wash it out. The bridge stretches ahead in damp stone, wide and slick. Lamps burn at long intervals, throwing shadows so deep between them they feel like separate corridors. You keep to the centre, so nothing can rise out of the edges without you seeing it. But the noise below moves with confidence, scraping against the inside of the arches under your feet. Each pull sends a vibration up into the soles of your boots. You pause under one of the lamps, peer through the gap toward the black space below. At first, just darkness. Then two shadows slide along the underside of the bridge, low and fast. Another joins them, the angles of the limbs sharp, moving quicker than anything human-shaped should. Breath carries up, short, uneven bursts, and the smell sharpens, telling you they've drawn closer while you watched. One shadow breaks away, angling toward the far end where the bridge meets the street. Even when you lose sight of it, the sound maps its climb. claws cracking free of stone, then latching again. It steps into the edge of the lamplight and the wrongness is immediate. The clothes hang loose in some places, stretched too tight in others. Trousers slack around legs that bend in new, unnatural places. Shoulders roll under a shirt that can't keep its shape over the frame. The neck looks pulled long, as though something inside kept pushing until flesh gave way. Its head twitches in short bursts, canine in its alertness, until it fixes on you. The jaw trembles, a growl rumbling low enough to feel before you hear it. Halfway through, it breaks into a wet, catching cough that bends the head forward. In those fractured sounds is a trace of something human, a voice buried under the rattle and teeth, as if the body can't decide between speaking and tearing itself apart. Your eyes keep drifting to the slick dips in the bridge's surface, each puddle a hazard. Without meaning to, you've slowed. The shape moves forward at the same unhurried pace. It isn't worried about you running. The next lamp catches at the twitch of muscle along its bent leg. The motion is haphazard, as if the body is still learning its plan, mistaking one shape for another. Your fingers find the small blade in your coat, not made for reach. On wet stone, even a quick move would shout your position. The thing lifts its head and draws in a long, testing breath. When it exhales, it's thick enough you imagine it stringing from teeth. The change in smell is acute, fresher heat behind the rot. You tighten your hold. If you were here, you'd step back now. You've heard enough to understand the source. In Yharnam, the Healing Church's blood ministration comes from the so-called old blood. Power in every drop, they say, but taken too far, especially by those desperate or proud enough to ignore cautions, it turns. The scourge begins there. Many never understand until it's nearly too late. Their bodies already shifting under their skin before they think to be afraid. By then, the blood's already traded human shape for something keener, stronger, and unwilling to give it back. A cough breaks the growl. The head lifts again, wetness catching the lamp's light at its mouth. Then a noise, the overlap of a word and an animal call, perfectly misaligned. It tilts its face as though willing you to hear it clearly. Maybe it wants you to doubt just long enough to make a mistake. You step sideways, slow. The breadth of the bridge feels smaller, the drop on either side less like open air and more like a waiting mouth. Steel catches light in your grip. Its eyes drop, noting the reflection as data, not fear. Then they return to you. Now you can count its breaths, quick pulses between coughs. The shirt over its back twitches with motion from more than just lungs. The spine arcs and unrolls in sections it shouldn't. Nothing about it says it will stop, and you've walked enough of these streets to know when something's set on what it will take. The mix of smell, the wet pull of each breath, the distorted reflection in shallow puddles, together they press the truth into you. This was the cure the church promised. Old blood in its veins, but instead of health, it's carrying a half-life, one that wants to push on into someone else. The church steps past creatures like this, maybe even calls their survival proof of work. You shift back, heel sliding into one of the bridge's dips. You feel your balance go and correct. The glance it earned you shows a way out, a narrow stair tucked into shadow at the far end. It drops under the bridge. There's no telling what waits there, but it's away from this thing's direct line. Its head tilts. The deep sound never stops now, but its pace is unchanged. Either too cautious here or certain this ground is already claimed. You spin the blade once, securing it against your palm. Then you pivot toward the stair and take the first drop. Stone grows colder instantly. The light vanishes faster than you expect. Each step down pulls you into thicker shadow. Above, pacing stays to the bridge, the scrape of claws on damp stone holding steady. The smell still drifts down, heavy in the falling air. You keep descending, the space tightening around you. The sound fades by inches, replaced by a different stillness. The walls here hold their own kind of quiet, the kind that doesn't promise safety, You know this gap under the bridge isn't empty. The cold in the stone has weight, and the darkness here isn't just from the absence of daylight. The further you drop, the more it feels like the air's been claimed by something else entirely, and whatever claims it, you're already inside its reach. The first step off the bridge takes you into a narrow stone throat. The cold here feels deliberate, like it's been kept in place. It isn't the clean chill of rainwater on stone. It's heavier, carrying tiny hints of whatever it's touched before you breathed it in. The air has been inside too long, storing traces of things better left behind. Your hand meets the wall as you descend. Dust clings in a fine film, never fully settled. The stairs shift underfoot, uneven, worn. Torches fixed far apart shed more shadow than light. Their flames shudder, snapping walls into darkness for a breath before revealing them again. There's no wind to blame. The air doesn't move, not unless it's leaking slowly down from the open night above. The stair curves, then widens just enough for a recess in the wall. Here the light catches on a wet scatter across the floor. It isn't water. The edges have already thickened, yet a few spots still gleam fresh. Your boots lift with a faint tack each time you move over it. Finding that stain this far down means it didn't arrive by chance. At the bottom, 3 passages wait, each carved from the same dull grey. The left is swallowed by shadow, its torch nearly gone. Straight ahead, the light runs deeper and carries a slow, even drip. Each drop lands into a space you can't yet see, sending back a faint echo. The smell here rides on top of the stone, a thin sweetness edged with copper. You've heard scraps about these halls. This is part of the tombs of Eden, a place older than the city itself. Long before Yharnam's streets, the Thumerians built vaults like these, what scholars now call chalice dungeons. Their dead shared space with relics, and deeper still, things tied to the great ones that most will never name aloud. Time has shifted the purpose. Now these tombs are where the healing church hides what it won't burn. Failures or experiments they'd rather keep close. Down here, they can study things without the city above ever knowing. The torchlight ahead finds a drag line in the dust, a straight groove from the centre of the hall to a narrow doorway on the left. Its edges are still neat. The powder hasn't had time to resettle. Whatever caused it wasn't lifted, it was pulled. A few faint boot scuffs follow along one side, uneven in length. You step over, avoiding the marks. The doorway opens into a low-ceilinged chamber. A dim torch burns at its centre, shadows thick against the walls. At the back, stacked forms emerge from the gloom, some shrouded in cloth, others bare to the dry air. Ash dust coats the fabric in a dull skin. Your eyes start to find edges you don't want them to name. You back out. Past the doorway, the air presses in again. Your footsteps stop feeling like your own. There's another sound, soft, almost like breath in your ear. A voice. The words blur into nothing distinct, but the rhythm is there, uneven in places where sentences should end. It's coming from behind one of the squat pillars that cut the hall into sections. You go still. The whisper doesn't change. If it knows you're here, it doesn't show it. Then you realise it's closer than when you first heard it, shifting forward the same way you have. The torch nearest you gutters hard, briefly splitting the pillar's shadow. Through that momentary split, something moves. Not enough to give you a face. The smell changes. The copper note deepens under the waxy stale scent of long-burned candles. It clings the way smoke does to old cloth. The space between each breath you take feels longer. You look for another way out, but the passage angles back toward the stairs. That route pulls you closer to the voice. You think of waiting, but the weight of the air keeps building. Shadows along the wall bend in shapes they shouldn't. Waiting would pin you here with a heavy stone on 3 sides. You shift backward on the balls of your feet, testing each stone before your weight commits. The whisper continues without pause. It's so steady you can picture it carrying on after you've left. At the foot of the stairs, you let your pace come quicker. The cold lifts in thin layers with each step, and the smell of the city starts to bleed back in through grates above. Warmer, drier, not clean, but different. The light from above pushes down in muted grey. You don't look back. Wax and metal stay at the back of your throat. The tomb's contents aren't at rest. They're being kept, maybe tended, maybe watched. Things buried here aren't meant to be forgotten. They're meant to wait. The final stairs bring you into the open hall that connects to street level. The air feels wider, easier to draw in, though the cold from below clings to your skin. You step out into the night's half-light. The grime of the city almost welcome now. You climb back, bringing the cold with you, but you're still breathing. And down the street, another light catches your eye. The light ahead feels different from the scattered lamps you've passed tonight. It's steady, clean through haze, as though someone meant it to be seen. Against the long run of dim, broken windows and locked doors, it pulls at your attention. You know enough here to mistrust something that looks like shelter, but your steps inch toward it anyway. The building beneath the lantern is narrow, rising high with its neighbours pressing in tight. The wood of the frame is dark and well kept, and the hinges on the door look used. Not like the sealed homes you've passed. You press the door, and it opens without resistance. Light spills across the threshold with a faint dry warmth. Inside, the air is heavier than outside, but holds a trace of heat. Walls climb up into a blunt arch. Rows of benches angle toward the far side. Shapes sit scattered on them, still except for the slow turn of the heads when the door closes behind you. The eyes that find you aren't sharp with suspicion like the shuttered lane. These glances slide over you, measure you, then return to their own space. A man in front folds his hand to his mouth against a cough that doubles him forward. Beside him, a young figure pulls a frayed blanket tighter. The sound here is soft, fabric shifting, boots scuffing faintly on wood. Near the centre, you notice a woman with her head lowered. At first, her stillness reads as prayer. Then you see her fists driven into her forearms, holding something under the skin from moving. A twitch travels beneath her grip, wrong in direction and rhythm, and her pale knuckles hold it down. She looks up only for a second, just enough to judge whether you saw. A movement at the front catches you. Fabric over stone. A side door opens and a figure in clean church robes steps out. Not spotless wealth, but tidy in a way that stands apart from the wear of the room. They carry a wooden tray with glass vials, each filled with dense, slow liquid. The light glances across their surface, shifting between deep red and brown. They walk without hesitation, steps measured until they stop in front of you. One vial tilts toward you, the curved glass reflecting your face. For the night ahead, they say. The voice is even, almost kind. The shape and colour give it away. It's a church vial, blood ministration in its standard glass. You take it, feeling faint heat through the glass. Cork sealed tight. You tip it slightly. The surface drags against itself before settling. The scent rises without needing to lift it close, sweet and sharp with the iron weight beneath, like sugar cooked past safe sweetness, layered over fruit just past rot. It's the smell of the church's cure, thick with old blood. The caretaker's gaze stays on your face, not pressing, but not drifting away. The schoolbook image of sanctuary shifts in your mind toward a room easy to lock from the inside. Here, a vial could be the first step toward a night you don't walk out of. The woman in the aisle hasn't lifted her head. The man in the front doesn't temper his cough. No one else reacts. Routine here, maybe repeated often. You can't tell who arrived by choice and who was brought. It will help you rest, they add, the quiet certainty in their tone leaving gaps for you to imagine what rest looks like here. You glance toward the benches near the back, the door still cracked just enough to show the pale edge of night. Inside, the air has its own pull, like the glow itself is keeping you where you stand. Outside might be worse, but not certainly. Your fingers turn the vial once more before you offer it back. They let the moment stretch a breath too long before taking it, setting it back on the tray. A A small incline of the head, no more, and then they vanish again through the side door. The click that follows feels too soft for how final it sounds. Chairs shift. The space resettles into the slow press of shared air. You take a last look at the bowed heads. The faces turn down, the controlled warmth that leaks into the high walls. Then you move to the entrance and open the door. Air colder than the tombs meets you, edge against your skin. On the street, the lantern shows brighter than it seemed from inside. Its circle of light slides around your shadow. You leave it behind quickly, letting the dark take it. The road ahead dips and angles, buildings shrinking toward what might be the city's edge. Only thin spills of window light trace the shapes of roofs and alleys. Your boots find the quietest paths in the cracks and uneven stones. Now and again you check over your shoulder. The lantern's glow stays where it is, a fixed mark against the dark. Places like that don't need to follow you to stay in reach of you. The wind carries muted signs of the city back to you, distant voices stitched into air, a faint clatter of metal on stone. Those sounds reach you the farther you draw from the lantern circle. Whatever sanctuary means here, it isn't safety. Out there, you're exposed. In here, in your own space, you're safe. You can set this story down at any time and breathe. The stone underfoot feels cooler now, the night calm enough to let you hear your steps. Thin light from high windows paints brief shapes ahead. You pass them without pause, attention leaning into the spaces beyond. Somewhere in that quiet, a new tone begins to take form. Faint, steady, almost too low to place, but gathering like it's feeding on the silence around it. It begins with a resonance low enough to feel before you recognize it as sound. A vibration behind your eyes. Not loud, not sudden. More like a pressure building until you can't separate it from the air itself. It swells, constant, until each breath feels like it's cutting into something bigger than you. Your pace slows without deciding to, 1 foot forward but holding there, and in that pause the street tilts ever so slightly beneath you. You glance upward. Over the rooftops the moon presses heavy against the clouds. It's swollen, closer than it should be, its edges tugging faint shadows of the sky inward. The pale face you know is draining to a darker hue, the last scraps of white vanishing under a deep, slow, welling red. The colour bleeds until no clean edge remains, fuzzing into the black above, as though the moon has outgrown its share of the night. Under that light everything shifts. Grey stone dulls to flat matte. Shadows run longer, stretching past where the lamplight ends. Walls seem to narrow upward. Cornices lean forward. Windows draw long in your sight. Though you know no work has touched the buildings, it's the perspective that's changed, and it's not yours alone. The air takes on weight. Drawing it in is work now, pressing against something invisible. Then the noise starts. Not one call, but several. Beasts, voices, each rising without trying to match the others. They clash and layer until there's no single source. Just a swelling wail pouring in from more streets than you can name. In the stories people avoid telling straight, this is the moment linked to Rome. The death of the vacuous spider tears away the last thin veil and pulls the blood moon into view. Not magic, not accident, but the removal of whatever kept the nightmare sealed from plain sight. Now it's here. Not created, only revealed. Somewhere to your left, stone catches the weight of a falling body, too solid to be a stumble. You reach the corner in time to see a man drop to all fours. His movement starts human but ends in stuttered, angled jerks. Nails screech faintly as they drag. His coat lifts over a back, pushing up in slow, uneven growth. The seams in his shoulders pull. He's not a beast, not yet, but the distance is gone. Farther along, a woman folds in on herself mid-step. Her hands grab at her own head, not to hold it steady, but in a desperate, lost attempt to grip whatever is turning inside. The moon's light traces her jaw, pulling it long. She writhes on the stone, then she stills. Silence hangs for 3 breaths before she moves again, standing taller, frame wobbling like a newborn animal's. In the outline, she's still human. Almost. The tone persists. It's not just sound now, it's a beat between your heart's beats, stretching time in ways you can feel. Your pulse waits too long, then rushes, waits again. That irregular push feeds a crawl of unease into your limbs. On the edges of your vision, shadows don't quite belong to their bodies. Heads turn too slow, with faces lagging behind them, syrup slow. The city hasn't worsened, it's simply unhidden. The bone-deep truths of Yharnam, walking without their masks as if the moon itself signed their right to be seen. You think of dawn, of pale light returning, flattening things into their daytime shapes. But there's no promise in that thought. This isn't the nightmare leaking in. It's what the city has always been. Morning might quiet the noise, fold the shape still again, but it won't close what's open now. Near the square, something pulls itself from between two stacked carts. A claw, a humped shoulder, a head set strangely low. The cry that comes is muffled like it started underwater, until it breaks free into a half scream. You don't wait for the rest. The pause between beats snaps tight. Your legs take over. The street you came along is changed. There's no clean rule of hunter versus hunted, just motion, each shape angling toward whatever it's chosen. On the rooftops, much taller silhouettes pace the edges. Every so often they stoop, and their upper halves vanish entirely into shadow. Your boots land on the stone, but the sound barely rises over the noise. The animal chorus fractures into bursts, some bending into distorted laughter before collapsing back into howls. Once, a woman's voice punches through, just for an instant. Blurred words gone as quickly as they came. A blur crosses an alley ahead in 2 strides, body tilted but never breaking pace. You don't turn your head to follow. The alleys glisten, floors slick, walls wet. No shelter there worth the dead end. The moon keeps its place above all of it, steady, unmoved, pouring red over even the corners shadowed from lamps. You can't say whether you're closer to leaving the city or walking into its heart. What changes instead is density, space behind you clearing, shapes ahead forming. Breath rasps harder against the air's weight. The urge to look up fights with the knowledge of what waits if you do. That pressure in your head has settled in, not painful now, just present. You catch yourself wondering how long the moon can hang like this, how long the city will remain in this raw state. No answer comes. The only truth you can hold on to is that when morning comes, it won't undo what's stepped out tonight. The morning will not unmake what has been revealed. So you run. Cobblestones underfoot, the occasional edge of a wall grazing your coat. Whatever holds your eyes forward is far enough ahead to keep you moving. The rhythm in the air matches something you've heard before. The underground heartbeat of the place. That pulse you felt in the stones when you first woke in Yharnam. Now it's louder. The moon hasn't made it. It's only stripped what used to cover it. You know this pace can't last forever. The city won't exhaust itself on your schedule, but each step pulls you towards someplace thinner, where the press of walls might break and air might shift, where you might find a gap, if it still exists. Even as your muscles burn, the idea fixes. Reach the edge, if there is one. That's where the night will give you a choice, and right now, choice is worth more than rest. If your shoulders have crept up by your ears, let them drop. Let your breath out slow. You're not in Yharnam. The ground under you is solid and safe. But for now in this story, you keep moving toward a place where the walls ease and the noise thins. You find the gate where the walls thin, the wood splintered from older hunts. The cold bites hard, but it's quieter here. No bells, no chanting. You push through, thinking the street beyond will lead out. It doesn't. Shapes step from the dark, saws catching the lantern glow. One moves faster than you can breathe, steel driving through your coat. You go down, the stones warm beneath you again. Now let that fade. You're here, in your own room. This was only a story. Unclench your jaw, draw a long breath in, and let it out slow. If this eased your mind, a gentle like or subscribe helps others find their way here. Feel the weight of your blankets, the rise and fall of your own breathing, stay with that, and let the night carry you deeper into rest.